long a lesson, but I believe what we will be covering today will definitely help some of you. And for those people who consider, for those of you who consider yourself to be very strong and very faithful and like a strong pillar in the church, maybe you can use those information that we'll be covering today to help those who are weak, whom you know are weak. Because at the end of the day, as Paul said in Galatians chapter 6, verses 1 to 5, the strong is supposed to help the weak. Okay? The strong is supposed to take care of the weak, just like our physical sibling. Parents always say, you who are strong, you who are successful, you who are blessed, you who are intelligent, please take care of your younger brothers or your younger sisters who are not doing so well in life or are struggling. I'm always thankful to my second brother, the one just after me. In my family, we have about 7 of us. My eldest brother, my eldest sister, my second brother, I think classmate of Tony Tan here in Asia, then me, then my younger sister, my youngest brother, and my youngest sister. So the one just above me we clicked pretty well. And so he will always, he will always show concern to me. I will always be his younger brother, okay? Even though he's 2 years my senior. And out of the blue, he called me up about 10 days ago, and he asked, "Hey, how are you?" He sent me an SMS and said, "Hey, how are you? Are you doing okay?" So I will always be his younger brother. So I hope that all of us will look out for one another, as we have discussed yesterday, that as Christians we are privileged to be a member of this great family. For those of us who have been added to the church when we were young, we indeed have been a blessed individual, because there are so many people who are always there, willing to support us, willing to encourage us, willing to lend a hand, and willing to lift us up, especially when we are down. Okay? So I'm glad that all of us are back here safely after a long drive. And I came back yesterday when we reached Ipoh over dinner. I think Joy's daughter and her friend were telling me, "Uncle Yeow, your eyes look very tired." Very tired indeed. Okay, let's start our Bible class this morning. Okay. In America, they have a lot of buses. Even here, we have a lot of buses. But this story happened in America, so I'm going to use an American bus. So this is a bus that this lady always take to her work. Every morning she would go to work, at a very, very punctual time, and the bus will also arrive at a very punctual time, not like our transit Ipoh or transit Penang or whatever. They would arrive at a very, very punctual time. And this lady would always find her favorite seat, as you always do. Everyone will always be sitting here every time you come to church, okay? And our Chan Kong will always be like a taiko sitting at the back there, and Albert and Anne will always be sitting here. So it is very normal and very human nature that we find our favorite seat, and we want to occupy that seat. And if somebody we come to church and somebody occupied our seat, we will come in and give him that look. Or if we, we just, we pretend to go to the front and then look at the back. So why are you taking my seat? Okay, anyway. So this lady will always go and sit at a favorite seat. And then one day, as she came up to the bus, she saw this guy who happened literally to be like that, leaning on the window and sitting next to her favorite seat. Fortunately, next to her favorite seat. And so she sat down, and she was just wondering how she can cheer him up. Because being a very kind-hearted woman and being a Bible believer, she's always, ever on the lookout to see people whom she can touch and people whom she can create an impact on. And probably she has learned the story of the Good Samaritan well. And so, as she was about to leave, the drop at her usual spot. She took out $10. She took out $10 and then pressed it to this guy's hand. And then she told him, "Young man, remember, never despair. Don't ever despair. Life is, there are a lot of good things in life. Never despair." So the next day, as usual, she would hop on the bus, and then she find this young man seated at that same spot, but now she looks very cheerful. She looked very cheerful. Wow, that's fantastic. And then but they didn't talk much. And so as she was getting down, the man handed her $100 bill. What do you mean? What is the meaning of this? Then the man said, "Remember yesterday you told me to never despair? Don't ever despair, never despair, never despair. Yesterday won the 8th race." Never despair. Just a story, okay? Okay, today we'll be covering this very important topic of overcoming despair. Now, as I was just mentioning yesterday in the camp, I get very worried over the last couple of months where we see this guy, 12-year-old young man, 14-year-old young boy in Penang committed suicide, and then 2 weeks later, a 24-year-old medical student who happened to be a nephew of our church member in Klang. And the father is a multi-millionaire. The father owns I think the father is a good friend of Dr. Quay in Klang. And Kok Ning, had the privilege to look at the number of clinics that the father of this guy owned. Multi-millionaire. Drives a Ferrari, I was told, and this young medical student drives a BMW Sports at age 24, never even started working, and the guy commits suicide. Then later on, there is another 12-year-old boy whose father did not have time to take him back to Sabah, and he hung himself with a shoelace. There are a lot of people out there, as I've said, the water level has gone way up, way up, way up, and they do not know how to handle despair. And so as Christians, we are also not spared from the ups and downs of life, but nonetheless, especially when we have yet to experience that, it is always good to prepare ourselves. It is always good to arm ourselves. It is always good to load ourselves with all these, preventive measures, so that all of us, should we happen to be in that situation, or if we know somebody in the church who will be in that particular situation, we at least can do something to help. And that is very, very important. Alright? Despair is a real thing. Discouragement is a real thing. Depression is a real thing. Extreme sadness is a real issue. Alright? There is no doubt about that. And despair, as we do some research, it is very, very closely linked, or very, very near to depression. And they say that despair is a situation where a person has more or less lost hope. No more hope already. Especially when family members of yours, when a doctor tells you, take him back. Take her back. No more hope. We can't do anything else. And so can you imagine the feeling of that entire family would just go down. But if a doctor says, there is hope. Now we have some medication. Latest one, there's some hope. There is hope. Wow, your spirit is totally different. And so, this problem of despair or hopelessness is a serious problem. Otherwise, there won't be so many people committing suicide in the world today. And this problem must not and should not be taken lightly. Should not be taken lightly. Being in the state of constant despair, there are a lot of disadvantages, there are a lot of harm that will fall upon that particular individual, health-wise. You can do a lot of bad things, crazy things to your physical health. You can do a lot of crazy things to society, and even our relationship with God. And that's important because we are children of God. And if we do not know how to handle this problem of despair, it can affect our relationship with God. And then you would think, what is this Christianity? No meaning. And then you give it up. And when you give up Christianity, when you give up running your marathon race, what will happen? The crown of righteousness will not be yours. The mansion that Jesus mentioned in John chapter 14 will not be yours. And so this is a very serious issue. Let's consider and understand a little bit about this important topic called despair. Let's define what these so-called experts say about being despair. To lose all hope. To be overcome by a sense of futility or defeat. Complete loss of faith. Life got no more meaning already. Nobody is out there to help me. I am in a hole that is too deep for people to pull me out. And so some of us can fall into that kind of situation, and it's definitely not good at all. Other experts say hopelessness or despair is synonymous, alright, comparable to hopelessness, despondency, and great discouragement. Yes, from time to time we get discouraged, especially when people rejected us. Probably the 24-year-old medical student were faced with great discouragement, and he doesn't know how to handle it. And so he thought he's not a Christian, alright? Even though Ingun, his family asked Ingun to preach during the wake. So they do not know how to handle discouragement. So that is why I am so thankful that I am a Christian. And therefore, because being a Christian, we have so many more avenues that the non-Christian don't have. We got more than that. We got a lot of avenues of help, lines of communication, lifeline they call it, that we can hold on to, that we can find support and hang on to, especially when we are faced with great discouragement. Now, what are the dangers of being in a state of constant despair? A research by the Universities of Missouri said a lack of hope has been linked to poor behavior in children. I don't know how they come to that conclusion. A lack of hope has been linked to poor behavior in children. Reuters' Leslie Lang said children with high level of hopelessness tend to engage in harmful and destructive behavior to themselves and others. They tend to be defiant, they refuse to obey rules, and they take turns to share and to skip school. And so, when we find teenagers or school children with problems, then chances are very good. They may know that they have a state of being despair, but they may know or they may not know that they have that problem. Or even the family may not even know why my kids are doing like that, why my kids are behaving like that. And so this is a very serious problem, alright? Now on your physical health, what are the impact of constant despair? Okay, on your physical health. Same detrimental effect on the heart as smoking a pack of cigarettes. So everybody knows that when you smoke cigarette, a lot of free radicals and a lot of poison gets into your body, and it will do a lot of harm to your heart. Similarly, the researchers say that if you are in a constant state of despair, you will also have the same problem, same effect on your heart, just like when you smoke cigarette. A high level of hopelessness exacerbates the atherosclerotic process in middle-aged men. It increases the thickness of the arterial wall and also maybe probably the plaque. And so when you are in a state of despair and constant hopelessness, the process speeds faster. The process of narrowing of the arteries gathers speed much faster, at least according to this particular research. Spiritual health. Now this is where we should be more concerned about. When a Christian continues to engage, whether he knows it or doesn't know it, whether he voluntarily or consciously involved in it, or ignorantly just flow with the stream, it is very detrimental to your spiritual health. Someone said, to be in despair is a slap in the face of God. He that despairs degrades God. So how can you as a Christian, who claim that God is your Father, and He's the most powerful being in the world, and there is nothing He couldn't do, and you claim to be His follower, and you claim to be His children, and you are in a constant state of being despair? It doesn't make sense, isn't it? A child, an orphan, Compare with a child who has got strong support from his parents and from his elder sibling, should not have the same kind of trouble, should not have same kind of anxiety as an orphan who literally do not have any support at all. So as Christians, we have God as our Father, and there should not be any reason for us to have constant despair, regular despair. Yes, we may be concerned about our exam next week. We may be very concerned about the $10 million deal that may make or break our business. And so yes, we may be very concerned about that, but we should not slide down to the state of being despair. And so for a child of God, if you are in a constant state of despair, you are actually giving God a tight slap. Wow, that is a very strong statement, isn't it? Now when you say a situation or a person is hopeless, you are slamming the door in the face of God. I was with envy, alright? And you and I know that Peter Chin is doing his utmost best. For those of you, some of you who know, some of you don't know, Peter Chin is having a great job, task to run the school in Forsyth College, and at the same time to raise funds to run the school. And in America, the economy is not very exciting, and so he's having a hard time. But he always says, at least the family always believe, when God closes one door, He will open the other. And Andy is also in the process of changing job, changing industry. And so he always saying, if when God closes one door, God will open another door. So as Christians, we have God helping us, we have God controlling our lives, and if we allow Him to. And so when we see and when we allow God to be an active part of our lives, we should not be in a state of despair. We should not. It is impossible for that man to despair who remembers that his helper is omnipotent. If you believe that God is omnipotent, the most powerful being, what is God? What is helping you out of a financial situation or a business situation? What is so difficult about that to God? If God can move mountains, if God can raise the dead, if God can just create with, shall I say, of course not a snap of a finger, God just speak and the thing just appear. So what's so difficult about Him pulling you out of the hole that you are in if you were to allow Him to? And so therefore, Christian, if we claim and honestly believe that God, our helper, our heavenly Father, is a being of great omnipotence, then we should not. We should not go around, walking this way as if we are carrying a whole world on our shoulder. We should not. Okay? We should. Sometimes unconsciously our expression can be like that. Unconsciously. Alright? Maybe you got too many things. Maybe you got too many things bothering you. And so, the best time to watch people and to know people is when you watch them when they really let their guards down. When they are alone, when they are seated there alone, in a coffee shop having a tea, when they are in the church, they come early in the church, they sit in one corner, or that is the best time to watch them, and that is the best time to know you have a very good idea their state of mind and the things that are bothering them. And so sometimes unconsciously we have this kind of real expression shown, and people will notice. If this guy always said one, I better chow him. I better, don't get too near to him. I better don't associate myself with him. So how are you going to be very effective in your evangelistic effort? How are you, as they say, going to be a very good ambassador for Christ? Not very exciting, isn't it? Not very exciting. Okay. So we have more or less covered the problem. So let's consider how we can do, or what are some of the steps, what are some of the ideas and solutions that you and I can find, so that we will not succumb to the state of being in a constant state of despair. Faith in Jesus or faith in God helps us overcome despair. A strong Christian, yes, you may have a lot of challenges, but when you believe in God, just like Joseph did, he's one of the best examples Joseph did. For a long time, Joseph could not understand why he was having so much trouble. He just couldn't understand. But he knew at the end of the story, alright? So as long as we believe in God, as long as we believe that God is watching over us, as long as we believe that God wants to give us the very, very best, then we should not be in a state of despair. Okay? Jesus provides hope for the hopeless. So, this particular slide talks about those who are outside the church, for those who are not Christian. And so if you are in that category, then Jesus can provide hope for you.